Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie and I am your astrologer. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back. It's nice to be here to chat with you guys for my weekly video. This week we're going to be talking all about the astrology for September 2021 and the most important transits that you need to watch for. If you're new to my channel, please do me a favor by clicking the bell button, like, commenting, sharing, subscribing. It really helps me get into the queue for other astrology watchers on YouTube. I'm here every week. Every Monday we do an overview for what's coming. The last week of the month, I always talk about the month ahead. And every Friday you can catch me here live doing readings. I alternate Fridays. One week is tarot, one is astrology. So this Friday night on my channel, I will be doing live tarot readings. A benefit of becoming a subscriber to my channel is if you are the top tier, you're going to get one reading once a month, whether that is a tarot or an astrology reading. And like I said, you can catch that live. If you haven't seen my subscription tiers, you should check it out. You can get in on level 1 and be a supporter. If you like watching my videos, I appreciate it. Level 2, you're going to get a shout out, and level 3, you get all of those things, and you're also going to get a reading. So make sure you check that out. And if you like my reading style and you'd like to get a reading with me, check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I have all of my links below. You can also see my social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram if you like memes and other things. This week we also have a new podcast that's out for the Midheaven podcast that I do with the Peace Dealer. Make sure you check it out. This week we kind of got caught up a little bit, so we had the ability to talk about just what's going on currently in the news. It's kind of crazy this week. Maybe you guys will enjoy it. It's a little different, a little less stuffy than my channel. All right, so I will unpack as the month goes on. We'll discuss more of what's happening with the transits week by week. Obviously, I know that we have a new moon in Virgo that's coming. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about that in a video later this week, but we have a new moon on the 6th. So usually I kind of do it a week ahead, but the way that the calendar worked this month, it was just kind of wonky. So you guys will get an extra video this week. So let's start talking about some of the most important themes for September of 2021. I'll be referencing the chart, so I'll go in and out of that and talk about that a little bit. But just kind of the biggies this month is definitely going to be the Mercury retrograde in Libra. Thankfully, the Mercury retrograde doesn't start until the end of September. It begins on the 26th and it will be retrograde until about the 18th of October. You will be feeling the shadow period very strongly. This is like the warning that I want to give everybody. The shadow period for this Mercury retrograde will be intense. The reason being is that Mercury will actually turn retrograde at about 25 degrees of Libra. It will backtrack all the way to about 10 degrees of Libra, go direct, and then it'll cross those degrees again. So with any retrograde, it always has like 3 different waves, right? It's the, when the planet stops, it turns retrograde, it covers something again. So when we think about a retrograde, retro, to go back, review, revise, rethink, rework, it brings up the past. And with a Mercury retrograde, we deal with, past issues that we have not wrapped up, whether that's contractual issues, issues with transportation, travel, gadgets, conversations that we need to have with people, especially in the sign of Libra, where it deals with relating to another person. Libra is marriages, legal agreements, business partnerships in some senses, and it's a Venus-based kind of sign. So anytime you have a Mercury retrograde going, through a Venus-based sign, it's going to bring up these things. Here's my issue with this Mercury retrograde is that Mercury will turn retrograde right around the same degree as Pluto. So the days leading up to the retrograde to me seem rather intense because Mercury is slowing down, kind of creating a several-day extended square to Pluto in Capricorn. So Mercury square Pluto is almost like obsessive, deep penetrating conversations, intense exchanges, whether that's text messages or, heated like legal things, legal battles, dealing with legal separations or legal agreements. I can't help but look at this retrograde and kind of go, all right, it's really going to put some relationships through the ringer. as Pluto comes into this square, because the way that I see it is like Pluto is also a sign that deals with like deep, like penetrative energy, secrets, things that are hidden, things that we were not aware of, or where people are being mistreated or abused or even manipulated. So when Mercury comes into the square with Pluto in the sign of Libra, we become more aware of like how much of an effect other people's thoughts or control have on us and or our resources. So some intense days definitely leading up to the 26th, and we'll kind of unpack that in just a minute. I'll go through all of the transits, and then we'll also go through that on a weekly basis. But you really want to watch for that. You know, sometimes Pluto can also be like very covert, where you know, you're in the relationship or you're in the business partnership and you're going along and everything seems good, and then all of a sudden there can be some situations that happen later to the end of this month where you're like, whoa, like their tone or the detail that I caught in the fine print of what we were about to sign and agree to for getting a loan, launching the business. These are things that I want you guys to watch for. Pluto square with Mercury can also be like obsessive, negative thinking, negative thought patterns. You know, if you are somebody who just can't get that X out of your head, or if you are somebody who's obsessively lurking through social media, I would say you want to watch for that, because that can definitely be coming up in this next month. But on both sides of the retrograde, so you probably want to look at, you know, maybe like the 20th of September, until it turns retrograde on the 26th. It's going to be intense. And then again, probably about the 19th through like the 24th of October. And then we're in the clear. So, you know, I see retrogrades differently. Like I kind of see it as like an opportunity to kind of like clean out your closet, especially this one, because squares are going to force you to have those conversations with people that you have been holding back and not having. And the issue with the square is that it will build pressure until it pops. So if you've had a lingering issue with a marital partner, if you've had a lingering issue with a business associate, if there has been some financial concern that you've had about your spending habits with you and a partner, and you haven't been talking about it, it's gonna come up. And it may come up in a very unpleasant way. And the way that retrogrades work is, like I said, it works in waves. So it's first going to cross those degrees and bring up the issue. It'll retrograde and bring it back up. And oftentimes we get more information than what we were aware of, or we uncover something. I especially see that with the square to Pluto. So it can be secrets that were uncovered, or things that were withheld that were uncovered, that suddenly we have to deal with. And I would just say, take this opportunity this month, and it'll be in October too. October is going to be another month where we're going to have the opportunity to wrap a lot of this stuff up. But use this period of time from the end of September into October to handle and deal with these issues head on, because it's really the setup. I don't want to give you guys more than what you can kind of chew right now, but it's the setup for ultimately what we're going to be dealing with later in the year. As you know, December rolls around, the end of December going into January, we will have a ton of planets in Capricorn, including we will have a Venus retrograde and a Mercury retrograde that will be going over the same degrees as Pluto. So the way that I see it is the writing will be on the wall, you know, in this next month, where we're having issues relating to other people, coming together and really talking about being on the same page when it comes to our resources, our power, how we can learn to be stronger together, and kind of problem solving, so we're not having these looming kind of Pluto monsters in the closet. Because by the time we get to the end of this year, we're going to see planets, you know, retrograde through the later degrees of Capricorn, and it'll come up again. And then if we don't deal with these issues now, it's going to be a bigger problem then. And with the sign of Libra, I also see it being a lot about relationships and what we value in relationships, and really needing to learn to like be more open to other people, and you know, being in partnerships and assisting people, or really talking about what we value when it comes to love and partnership, and really being able to talk about what's important to us now. Otherwise, you know, the end of the year can be a rather cold and lonely time for some people by the time we get to those planets that are retrograding through Capricorn. And so, you know, really think about the words that you use. Be selective with how you express yourself to other people. We don't want to throw verbal barbs at others. I'm expecting a lot of clashes in marital relationships, quite honestly, because it's Libra and it squares Pluto. And when I think of Libra and Pluto, you know, Capricorn especially, Capricorn is 4 signs away from Libra. So another way that I look at it is a lot of conflicts over domestic stuff, a lot of conflicts over home, family, roots, physical property and real estate, older relatives in the home. So you may, especially if you are a Libra or a Libra rising, and any of the cardinal signs, especially between about, you know, 25 to 29 degrees, are going to feel this the most. You're already dealing with Pluto squares. You're going to see this intensity coming up around these topics. Like, do we let, you know, the mother-in-law move in right at the end of the year? You know, are we dealing with family just suddenly showing up and kind of like putting throwing a bit of like an unexpected, you know, schedule change into the family kind of work dynamic? Do we have situations like, you know, weighing the options with whether or not you sell your home and you move across the country, whether or not, you know, you're gonna decide to stay in the same home and co-parent if you're going through a divorce or a separation, or if a partner's pressuring you, you know, to pay them alimony. These kinds of things are gonna start coming up. All right. And then, you know, the next kind of wave of this also is definitely like jealousy. And I think jealousy is going to be a big topic in the next month. It's kind of hard for it not to be with, you know, Mercury and Libra square Pluto. But also Venus moves into Scorpio. So Venus moving into Scorpio on one hand is really great for Scorpio sun, moon, and risings, especially Scorpio risings and Scorpio suns. You're going to see a much like sexier side of yourself for the month ahead. It's great for making changes to your appearance, whether it's like your hair, your clothes, your cosmetics, like maybe you want to change up your style. And Scorpio, Venus in a Pluto sign is intense. It's dark, it's sexy, it's kind of sultry, but it can also be possessive and jealous. So kind of adding that into the mix can definitely bring up some issues this month. And it's the return of the fixed squares. So same as February, same as May, same as August, we saw planets move into the fixed signs and bump up against and come into squares with Uranus in Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius. So now that we have Venus moving into the mix, we are going to see the return of the fixed squares. And so it's just a reminder, guys. This is like a setup basically going into like October and November for the other like inner planets, Mercury, the sun, you know, eventually Mars, all moving into Scorpio, which will oppose Uranus and Taurus and square both Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. So it's the return of the T-squares. Think of what was kind of happening and going on like 4th of July weekend, right? All of those like explosive kind of situations. In Leo, it was very dramatic, and there was a lot of oppositions to Saturn. But with planets in Scorpio, which deals with rebirth, transformation, death, endings, regeneration, confronting the fear, confronting the dark, I'm telling you guys, and you've seen this the last 2 or 3 years, when planets move into Scorpio and it opposes Uranus and Taurus, it's like unexpected shocks and plot twists and all kinds of things. Thankfully, some of these will be for the better because it will square Saturn. So it'll say, you know what, this has to end because of where we're going in the beginning of 2022, or this has to kind of transform for the better, because also some of these transits will come into squares with Jupiter, which can be kind of like overly optimistic and blown out, but ultimately it can manifest as situations that change for the better, right? Fall equinox is coming, and that is going to be a time for rebalancing, you know, kind of making this shift in this segue now to the fall, at least here in the northern hemisphere. It's the beginning of the fall season for us, and whenever we're crossing into the realm of Libra, we're now looking at the 7th house through the 12th house, so between now and basically next spring. So this is when we start to kind of engage and interact more with other people. We start to see things kind of manifest as not just us on a personal level, but how we're working with others. I'm a fan of this, even in spite of some of the squares that we're having. I'm a fan of these transits because even the beginning of September, the first couple days, we have some very harmonious aspects to Saturn. So it is stabilizing. It is going to help us plan concretely for the future. And it's going to give us that really kind of solid kind of structure to be working with to start kind of building into the future and laying plans out, especially, for like the beginning of 2022. The fall equinox in a metaphysical kind of magical sense is definitely a really amazing time to reground, rebalance, work with the elements of air, really working with letting things naturally kind of wind down, right? So when we think of like, Libra, we immediately, and you can, at least here in the States, you can feel it. As soon as like September hits, everybody's just like, oh my gosh, we're making all these plans for the holidays, and we're making plans to go and visit family, and we're making plans for parties and gatherings and get-togethers. And there's a lot of having to kind of like work with other people when it comes to setting this stuff in motion. So I want you guys to be really aware of the energy during that day when the sun crosses into 0 degrees of a cardinal sign. It's just like magic because it's giving us the opportunity to kind of have a clear slate, at least for like the next, 3-4 months until we come to the winter solstice, which is another really pivotal time, I think, to get things going. Every solstice or equinox gives us the opportunity to start anew. So if you're wanting to set new intentions, find more kind of inner balance, peace, find a new relationship, embrace a new lifestyle change, that is the time to do it. So pay attention for that. And I guess I kind of wrap up with just some really beautiful and harmonious aspects between Libra and Aquarius. So I spoke about a little bit of, the trines that we're going to see, especially at the beginning of the month. You'll see trines between Mercury and Saturn. Then when the sun joins the bunch, we're going to see trines between the sun and Saturn, and then ultimately Jupiter. So when we unpack this, Libra represents the Venus aspect that's more masculine, unlike Taurus, which is very feminine, and it's like earthy, and it's very possessive, and it's like mine, it's what's mine, what I have. Libra talks about what we have. And what I love about Libra is that Libra definitely does rule with an iron fist, right? Like velvet glove, iron fist. They definitely have a more masculine side to them. And a lot of people get surprised when I say that because, Scorpio is a feminine sign, Libra is masculine. Masculine and also being connected to the element of air. So it's a lot about diplomacy, communication, intellect, information, being a little aloof, a little detached. Some may say indecisive, but those of you guys who have some really prominent Libra placements in your chart, whether you're a Libra sun, a Libra rising, maybe you have like a Venus in Libra or a Saturn in Libra, you know what I mean when I say like iron fist, velvet glove. Like there's a way to deliver information that is very kind of direct and between the eyes, very kind of Queen of Swords energy, but in a way that is allows people to be receptive. It allows people to understand where they're coming from and not always take offense to it. And yeah, so Libra energy is going to be really great when it's mixing with Aquarius, because Aquarius is a sister sign. So when I think of Aquarius as being the collective, it's the group and, the goals that we're working towards. It's the birthday candles that we blow out. It's the intentions that we're setting. It's the star card. When there are conversations between Libra and Aquarius as a pair, one-on-one with another person, or rebalancing the relationship with yourself, or rebalancing the relationship with a business partner, we can go the distance and actually really start to see the full benefits and the effects of Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, and we can plan for a more harmonious future for everyone involved. So while Libra really wants fairness, I feel like Aquarius really delivers and really ensures that everybody is on the same page. So don't lose sight of some of the trines that are happening this month, because I think that it's really speaking to the future. Especially pay attention to the dates to where we have like a Sun or a Mercury or a Venus square Jupiter. It's talking about the future and being optimistic about the future and where we are going. Next year, we are going to see that Saturn is going to cross the same degrees in which Jupiter has been in. So a lot of the themes that have been happening in 2021 are actually really going to fully show themselves in 2022. The one other aspect I'll say that is happening that I'm not wild about, but I can see why it is important, is aspects between planets in Virgo and Neptune in Pisces. So we talked about this a little bit in my previous videos. I talked about it, I believe, when Mercury and Venus made an opposition to Neptune. Neptune is mysterious, it's spiritual, it's sometimes a little evasive, a little foggy, can't entirely quite figure it out. Very strong in Pisces as well. What we will see in the month ahead is actually in the next couple of days, Mars comes into an opposition with Neptune, followed by the Sun in Virgo making an opposition to Neptune. So the positive side is that's meant to soften us up, get us to open up, be more aware, more compassionate, more understanding, more willing to help, assist, maybe be a little self-sacrificial, especially when the Sun shows up. But on the other hand, it's like I've heard nothing but people getting scammed in the last month. I had a ton of scams going on my account. I'm hearing all kinds of people that are getting scammed recently with crypto mining stuff. I'm seeing people's accounts getting hacked. Scammers are alive and well this month, guys. That is not going to go anywhere. I really feel like that's also lending energy to what's happening with the Mercury square Pluto. You want to be really, really aware of sensitive personal information. I am anticipating on one hand with the Mercury Pluto squares that there could be some kind of like data breach, okay? On the other hand of the Sun and Mars in opposition to Neptune, I'm expecting that there is going to be a ton, I'm talking a flood of media that is going to come out that is nothing but fear-mongering. Nothing but fear-mongering. It's already happening. We're seeing a lot of it. Obviously, I kind of have the perspective that if there's important news that's out there, if I need to hear it, I'll hear about it. I've heard some of it in passing, but I'm not looking for it. But Mars in opposition to Neptune is going to be a very kind of, on one hand, it's the spiritual quest, the spiritual warrior, the standing up and helping other people and being self-sacrificial and, you know, saving the kittens on the street and protecting the homeless, which are good things. On the flip side, it's like the television screens that are doing nothing but screaming and ramping everybody up thinking we're going to war. And whether or not that happens, that's neither here nor there. But you're definitely going to see a lot of fear mongering on the internet, on television, on news channels. You're going to be hearing this a lot. And Mars in opposition to Neptune can also be like passive aggressiveness and misplaced aggression or agitation, not knowing why that's happening. You also want to watch out for substances, mixing substances, being under the influence, obviously, new medications, things that can bring up strange rashes, irritations, inflammation, and not mixing medications or mixing heavy machinery and driving. We may hear about some kind of like, you know, real significant damage. I mean, I've already been hearing about it. In my last videos, you guys heard me talking about extreme weather. Hearing about the damage coming in from the hurricane that came in through Louisiana. So we may hear in the next couple of days how bad that damage is, realistically whether or not, you know, we're going to see that there is a whole slew of people who need assistance. I see Mars as an army. So I think that we're going to see a lot of people who are going to go in. I know that Biden did declare that it was an emergency. It was a natural disaster. So I do assume that they're going to be sending people in to go and help. But I'm also expecting lots of, you know, lots of just destruction, basically, and people who are really needing to be saved. So look for that really the next 48 hours as Mars comes into an opposition with Neptune. Steer away from the drama, from the fear-mongering, from getting agitated and getting riled up without having all the details. The Sun will make that opposition as well, and we'll see that later in the month. I see that as just heart opening, an opportunity to have a little bit of like an ego death in all of the best ways. I see the Sun oppose Neptune as like the clouds part, and like there's this really direct connection that you have to the divine. It can be in your day-to-day life, it can be a dream, it can be a vision, it can just be a feeling that your heart is cracking wide open and you're more sensitive and you're more aware of the fact that you want to help people or that you need more in some way. And we see some kind of new spiritual outlook that can open up with that opposition. So that's going to be an interesting aspect as well. All right, so let's do the day by day, and I'll talk to you guys about what's going on for the entire month and give you some of my kind of most significant aspects that I have seen. Stay tuned until the end also. I'll be pulling a card for each of the 12 signs, and I'll talk to you about what your zodiac can expect for the month of September. So the month kicks off on the 1st, but I really want to look at the 2nd of September because that's when Mars in Virgo comes into the opposition with Neptune in Pisces. This energy is probably already being felt today. I know I'm feeling it. I'm very Mars heavy myself. So whenever there's any aspects between Mars, I definitely feel it. Just like lower energy is kind of what it feels like. I have felt kind of like slower cognitively and like needing to kind of take my time. Like yesterday was my day off, and I remember kind of being like, I didn't get anything done today. Like all I did was just like watch sports and just like snack all day and like go swimming. But I guess that's what we want to do when Mars goes opposition to Neptune. So today, tomorrow, you're going to be feeling this the most. If you are a mutable sign between 20 and maybe 24 degrees, I think you're going to feel this the most strongly. And whenever you're dealing with mutable squares, there can be issues with communication, understanding, comprehension, and you really want to watch out for misunderstandings. That's the word, misunderstandings. Also coming into ultimately the days that are going to lead up into the new moon in Virgo. On the 4th of the month, we're going to see that Mercury in Libra trines Saturn in Aquarius. Take a red marker, put this on your calendar, circle it, because this is a day that is probably going to be one of the most beneficial days for the entire month of September. So when we see Mercury in a trine to Saturn, it's basically saying, how can we lay the groundwork, setting something in motion contractually, write it down, have the meeting, whatever, to set the stage for something solid in the future. You'll have this really only for about a day or so, then you're going to lose it. I imagine that some of the plans that are set in motion around the 4th of September, by the time Mercury comes into a trine with Jupiter, you're going to have good news. You're going to close on a deal. You're going to start a relationship. You're going to have somebody who's going to say yes. You're going to get some kind of like, golden sticker from the universe. So pay attention to that day. Whenever Mercury is in a harmonious aspect to another air sign, communication is much easier because it flows in air. So it may not be something that's so like physical as like having to start a project. It's more make the phone call, send the letter, send the email, respond to the text message. It's very intellectual, and air can sometimes be harder to spot, but overall, I see that as like planning into the future, okay? And then on the 5th of the month, there we go, we have Venus in Libra with her first square to Pluto in Capricorn. Okay, make another circle with your red marker on this day. Just letting you know that whatever comes up on the 5th, this is going to come up 2 other times like between now and October. So whatever the blow up is, whatever the intense situation is, if your spouse is like, why did you charge so much on the credit card? I never knew we owed this much. Or if you're like creeping on an ex's Instagram and you see some stuff and you freak out, like, not a good sign. These are things that are going to play out really for the next month. So it's Mercury's little way of basically saying, hey, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get your attention. You need to deal with this situation. You need to be aware of it. Equally, there can be things that are kind of creeping up in your subconscious that you're thinking about, and like you want to start some drama, but you're going to be like, I'm going to wait. If you wait, and if you do not do it while you still have harmonious aspects between Mercury and Saturn, you're going to get your ass kicked a little bit at the end of the month. So just be aware of that. It's going to come back up with vengeance. I'm just going to tell you, I warned you. People get a little grouchy too at the dark moon. That's right when the moon's in, the moon is in opposition to Jupiter this day. The moon's in Leo. So definitely some drama can be kind of brewing, and then it's coming into the dark moon right before we have the new moon in Virgo. On the 6th, we have this new moon in Virgo. One little note that I have that I think that I like about this is that at the time, Venus in Libra is in a trine to Jupiter. Is that the most important thing? No. Whenever we're looking at a new moon in Virgo, we want to look at Mercury. And what I like about Mercury is that on one hand, it still is in a trine to Saturn, so that's good. really great for this new moon to be setting intentions. Writing out your intentions is one thing I would say. Working with incense, speaking your intentions out loud, selecting mantras and things that you want to work with. But what I'm not crazy about is Mercury's opposition to Chiron, so that's likely to bring up some boo-boos and some conversations that you need to talk about that might be a little sensitive. But nevertheless, definitely, you know, this is a moon that's definitely going to shake things up. I look at that 14 degrees new moon and that it's going to make an exact trine to Taurus, Uranus and Taurus. So what will happen shortly after that is Venus will come into that opposition. So on one hand, yes, it's a great new moon for like creating change. I see this as a new moon that's also really good for, you know, trying to get down to details, trying to problem solve, new innovative ways to handle money, health, resources, schedule changes, dietary changes. But shortly after the new moon, the energy starts to get kind of wonky. So stay tuned. I'll do a whole video on that. That's going to be coming sometime this week. You guys got lucky. You got an extra one out of me this week. All right. And then on the 10th of the month, we have Venus enters Scorpio. I guess technically we got to do this, but Venus will enter into Scorpio on the 10th. And the moon will be there as well. So that's going to be an interesting kind of aspect. Earlier on the 10th, right before Venus changes degrees and moves into Scorpio, you will feel that change. The moon will be there as well. So there's going to be a trigger that will happen that day. Like I said, Venus in Scorpio, a little sexy, a little bit more sultry, definitely a little bit more possessive. Venus does not do so well in Scorpio, so you can kind of see like the darker side of like obsessiveness in romance. On the flip side, I think it's very devoted, very passionate. You know, Venus in Scorpio can also be like really showing us like the shadow self, and where if we're feeling those energies, if we're dealing with that to some extent, it's representing something that we really need to deal with within ourselves. It's a very 8th house energy, okay? So let's move ahead here, and I'll talk more about Venus's aspects and the squares later this month. Then we skip over to the 14th, and on the 14th of the month, we see that Mars enters Libra. Mars in Libra, what can I say about that? I always laugh when I think about that. I mean, Mars obviously doesn't do so well in Libra. Mars prefers to be in Aries, or it likes being in Capricorn, or fire signs where it can really kind of show its like most energetic self. Mars in Libra is a little bit like, you know, sitting on the couch and like flipping through Netflix for an hour and being like, what do you want to watch? I don't know. Or where do you want to go out to dinner? I don't know. So it doesn't have the best sense of direction. It can be indecisive or lazier, because Venus signs are notoriously kind of lazy, or a little less active, so to say. Definitely there is motivation revolving around love and relationships, because Mars in Libra wants to partner with people. So I could see that being as like more motivation to be spending time with others, or being more action oriented around others. But all in all, lower energy levels, a little bit more indecisive, a little lost, and not as kind of direction based as a Mars in Aries sign. What I do like though is, like I said, all month long, these planets in Libra are going to play very nicely with planets in Aquarius. So there is a lot of like working together for a common cause, working together with friends, working with a partner, socializing, things like that. One thing that I will say that also was happening, I guess I kind of missed it, but it was the day prior on the 13th, that Sun was in opposition to Neptune. One thing that I see happening here is that I do think in the month of September, there is going to be another wave of people hearing a lot about the pandemic, hearing a lot about COVID, about whether or not there's another wave coming. I'm not going to speculate if that's true or false. I'm just going to tell you you're going to hear a lot about that. And people are going to become very hyper-focused on healthcare, health, wellness, assistance, whether or not we have enough. You're going to see the energy really change in the next month or two, where we become very focused on, do we have enough? Is this healthy enough? How are our hospitals? How are our treatment plans? And you're just going to hear a lot more about this than usual. So on one hand, you know, Mars and Mercury making aspects to all these planets in Aquarius should be like a lot of planning parties, planning weddings, planning get-togethers, celebrations, stuff for the holidays. But then I see like the sun coming into aspect with Neptune, and people are going to be like, oh, well, I don't know. So take it for what it's worth. I think that the planning is probably going to get easier once we get to about mid-October and planets come out of these squares with Pluto. All right, so now moving to the 16th of the month. The sun in Virgo comes into a trine with Pluto in Capricorn. Great day for, I think, like a power up, a recharge, a kind of coming into divine power, realizing that it's going to take a lot of work or effort to get the job done, but definitely very fulfilling. When you see these trines in earth signs, you know that there is physical change happening. On a 24 degree, though, it really starts on a spiritual level of belief, or I see that as how much work we're really doing for ourselves to be able to see the change that we want to see out in the world. Nevertheless, this is a very powerful day. On the 17th of the month, this is going to be another red marker day. This is going to be when Venus in Scorpio is squaring off with Saturn. I think it actually happens a little bit earlier in the morning or late on the 16th, but you're going to feel it both days, the 16th and the 17th. Saturn square Venus, or technically Venus square Saturn. That is some like harsh reality checks revolving around relationships, and I really see like Venus in Scorpio and Saturn in Aquarius is like jealousy of things that you see online, things that you see on social media. The boyfriend or the husband or the wife that gets jealous about you hanging out with your friends and what you're doing with your friends, which is the setup for Venus coming into an opposition with Uranus. So pay attention to this day, because this is like a speed bump or a stop sign. It's kind of like where Venus gets checked. And the moon will be there as well in the same sign. So it's a lot of like people getting jealous about what other people are doing. Then on the, let's see, the 20th, this is going to be a full moon in Pisces. So full moon in Pisces, all the feels, all the emotions. It's going to be around 28 degrees. The one thing I like about this is Venus is in a trine to Jupiter in Aquarius. So both lunations this month, we have some positive aspects that are going on between Jupiter. So it's really speaking to the future. I imagine like Jupiter like being somebody who has like this megaphone that's like screaming at everybody like, wake up, don't worry about what's going on right now. Worry about where you're going to be in 2 years. And that's really what he keeps telling us. So during both the new moon and the full moon, it's looking into the future. I keep telling my clients this, and I'm going to tell you guys as well. I'm trying to get people to think collectively about where we're going to be in spring of next year, or where we want to be in 2023. We're working on a longer term plan. So both lunations, positive aspects with Jupiter speaking to the future. However, when we're dealing with a new moon in Pisces, we're going to look at Neptune. So the sun has come out of its opposition with Neptune. You've got Neptune that's still kind of in a sextile to Pluto. We see that there is like an inconjunct or a quincunx from Mercury, and it's the setup for Mercury getting ready to go retrograde. So any full moon in Pisces is going to be emotional, especially when you look at it being in the later degrees. It's at 28. So it's going to be in a Pisces degree with the moon in Pisces, with Neptune in Pisces. A lot of people that are going to be provided two options. One, you're either going to just totally be messy and spin out of control and just want to be like drinking and in your feelings and crying and having a moment, freaking out, panicking, panic buying toilet paper, whatever it is that people are going to be doing during this full moon. Or you need to be super zen and just like chilling out and being like, you know what, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I have no control over anything other than myself. And reminding yourself that when everybody else is like spinning out of control during this full moon, because I'm going to tell you something, not all is what it seems during this full moon. This full moon is going to bring up a lot of people who are just going to be totally wigging out. That's my perspective. Thankfully, 2 days later, we move into the equinox. Happy fall in the northern hemisphere. It is time to be reflecting on Libra themes, balance, fairness, partnerships, relating to others, all that fun stuff. So appropriate with a ton of planets that we are going to have in Libra at the time. Super powerful time, magically, ritually speaking, to just clean the slate. Work with the element of air, get up, greet the sun, do all that fun stuff. And it's going to be a doozy with With Mercury getting ready to turn retrograde, there is a T-square that day. Mercury exactly squares Pluto, and the moon in Aries is going to kick that day off hard. That's going to be a little intense, so watch for that. It's not your stereotypical Libra season. I mean, we've even got like, you know, the sun and Mars within close range to each other, so it's going to be a little bit more kind of, I hate to keep saying relationshipy, but motivation revolving around other people. So other people pushing you, or you trying to work with other people, or trying to find the balance with others. On the 22nd, okay, so that's the 22nd. On the 23rd is the big day. The 22nd and the 23rd. Venus in opposition to Uranus. Holy cow. Especially the 23rd is when this one's going to really pack a punch. Venus comes into opposition with Uranus and Taurus, so sudden changes of fate with finances and relationships. The moon is going to move into Taurus, and it's going to enact this. If there is breakups that are getting ready to happen, this will be the day. The moon will trigger it. Mercury will come into a square with Pluto, and I am expecting all kinds of arguments and eruptions and things happening. It's like that's when we'll be aware of some kind of like storm that's brewing. On the 25th of the month, then we have Mars in Libra in a trine to Saturn in Aquarius. So here's like the silver lining in all of this is, regardless of what's happening, all of these trines between Libra and Aquarius are like, yeah, well, we don't agree, but we got to work together, so we got to find a way, right? And so I want you guys to think of that and like really take a step back and breathe when these events are taking place, because it's giving us the opportunity to be able to work something out so it can be stronger in the future. Sometimes like good relationships are built on hard times. And like same with like just like life experience. Like when you're going through some shit and things get really challenging, there's always like that pot of gold on the other side of it where there's that 2.0 version of you. So when the going gets tough at the end of this month, realize that sometimes that's what good relationships can be built on, is facing problems head on together. And even if you don't agree, finding a solution and finding a way forward. Keep thinking about that, especially on the 25th of the month. On the 26th, Mercury kicks into its retrograde. This is going to be probably a day to pay attention to, because that can also be where there is some kind of information that you uncover, that you become aware of, or some kind of issue that you need to start working out. Like I said, it'll be retrograde until about the 18th of October. We're going to feel it clear until about the end of October. Same thing goes for all retrogrades. If you're going to sign a contract, sign a lease, if you're going to buy a car, if you're going to get married, okay, all of these things, people who are planning weddings, I imagine that there could be a bit of a freak out for people at the end of September, and they're going to be like, oh my God, is it going to happen, because of the squares to Pluto. So pay attention to this time. I do think that in the end, the trines between Jupiter and Saturn will prevail, and there is going to be a lot of stability. This day also, you know, with Mars in trine to Saturn at a 7, it's like, I don't care. We're going to work it out. We're going to stick it through. We're going to figure it out. We're not just going to give up. Then we have on the 29th of the month, we have Venus in Scorpio in a trine to Neptune in Pisces. So that's nice. Finally, like Venus in Scorpio is not shit disturbing. Like now it can move forward a little bit and it can come into a trine with Neptune. Creative, dreamy, whimsical, great day for painting, creating, drawing, writing, storytelling. If you're a poet, if you're a musician, it's a beautiful time. And it can just feel very romantic with that grand water trine, because the moon is in Pisces. Excuse me, the moon is in Cancer, trining Neptune in Pisces. So this can be kind of like that opportunity to smooth things over a little bit in a relationship. This is like the makeup sex day. That's kind of what I'm predicting. Like after all the drama, this is when you can kind of come together, and there can be a much easier kind of emotional exchange. Granted, the moon will make an opposition to Pluto and square Mercury, so it's going to be a lot of like, I'm so mad at you. Okay, but like we're going to work it out. So watch for the moodiness with the moon in Cancer. Finally, last but not least, on the 30th of the month, Venus in Scorpio then comes into a square with Jupiter in Aquarius. So once again, a makeup day. This can also be a day where I think with Venus coming into the square with Jupiter, it's overly enthusiastic, overdoing it. I think about like all the sweets and all the cupcakes and all the sugar and all the dates and the flowers and those kinds of things. Jupiter square Venus can just be overindulgence. So it definitely can be an opportunity to, I think, come together and smooth everything over and start actively working in the direction of being able to build stronger. There can be overindulgence. There can be like also like telling tall tales that can come up, like, oh no, everything's fine, everything's great, like we got back together, we're gonna be good. When Mercury goes retrograde in Libra and people start relationships and end relationships, my favorite thing to do is just to sit back and watch and go, okay, all right, we'll see if that really happens. Like, let it do its thing. So there can be overdoing it to kind of put a bandage on a broken arm, right? And people are like, no, we got back together, we're good. Here's all these pictures of us together and like, we're great. So watch for that as well, because it can be superficial. And whatever relationships or agreements or partnerships or legal decisions that kind of pan out, however things go in the next month, is very karmic by nature because of the squares that it's having to Pluto. So it's going to be an intense month, kids. Stay tuned. Those of you guys who have some really heavy like Aries or Libra energy, you know, buckle up, get ready, because it's going to get colorful. If you are somebody who has like Saturn or Jupiter in Libra, or if you are somebody who has Pluto in Libra, if you are somebody who has a you know, a later degree Libra or any cardinal rising sign, maybe a good month to check in and get a reading, especially if you're somebody who's like already kind of like on the brink or on the fritz of thinking about a separation. Can be a good time to get a reading, just so that way you're aware of the better days to approach that, especially from a legal standpoint. Like, I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell people when a better day would be to start the process of a separation with transits like this. But obviously, I'm hoping that most of you guys are able to actually use the energy to work through issues and problem solve, so you don't have to get there to begin with. All right. So let's take a look at what the cards have to say for the month ahead for each of the 12 signs. Listen for your sun and your rising sign. This month, both are going to be very, very applicable, because I see a lot of energy in the cardinal, mutable, and the fixed signs. So it's not going to be favoring any one particular placement. So for the month ahead for Aries, what does Aries need to be aware of in the month of September? The Fool. Aries, is it time to walk? Is it time to walk away? Is it time to take a chance? The Fool, especially when it's upright, it talks a lot about like taking chances, opportunities. I think about the squares happening in your chart between your 7th and your 10th house. I think about the aspects between your 11th and your 7th house, and you have to really listen to your heart this month. It's going to be a time where you can turn over a new leaf, and if it is time to do something new, or if it is time to go in a new direction, do it. Keep in mind that this is the energy of Uranus, so it is talking a lot about the aspects between your 2nd house and your 8th. Some of you guys might make some risky investments, whether that's with your heart or with your wallet. So just be mindful that whatever it is, you're in like new territory. All right. So Taurus, what does Taurus need to be aware of for the month of September? This is going to be a wild month for Taurus with all these squares and these aspects that are in Libra. The Knight of Cups. Awesome card, super good. This is talking about your heart being wide open. This is talking about how you are feeling emotionally. I think what's nice is for Taurus, you know, having Venus going into your 7th house, it can definitely materialize as a very relationshipy month. The Knight of Cups can be somebody who comes in and sweeps you up off your feet and is super romantic. It can be the beginning of a relationship, a sexy date, anything like that, grabbing drinks with someone. But this also talks about being romantic and being in a romantic state of mind to where you're open to creating change when it comes to how you look at relationships. So I think about Venus in your 7th and Saturn in your 4th, where you're embracing and kind of turning a new leaf when it comes to relationships and being more open to the idea of being in a relationship, being married, being partnered, and really kind of being spoiled rotten by somebody who's really interested in you this month. All right, so now Gemini. So what does Gemini need to know about the month ahead? Seven of Cups. So this is about being kind of creative, dreamy, whimsical. I mean, thankfully on one hand, you've got a lot of planets in air signs, so I think that you're going to fare pretty well this month, even in spite of some of the stuff that's happening with the retrogrades and planets in your 5th house. This can be weighing out options in romantic partners, trying to kind of cut through, do I want this, do I want that? And having options also when it comes to creative projects and kind of feeling things out emotionally, because this is Cups. There's also a lot of aspects happening between your 9th and your 5th house. So it can be, you know, questioning and wondering if you should be taking a new, you know, course or class, questioning or wondering if that person really is into you who lives in another place, deciding and determining whether or not, you know, it is a good move for you to be, maybe like writing or publishing. This is very dreamy and kind of whimsical as well. So it's about being in kind of like a dreamy state of mind. I don't think that's going to be hard for you considering all of the aspects that are going on with Pisces. I do feel like it's going to give you the opportunity to kind of dream about where you're going, but it may not be a month to kind of feel like reality is setting in. So just focusing on the creative, the dreamy, the more abstract things for right now. Not anything's going to be set in stone, I think, until later in the month. All right, so for Cancers. So what does Cancer need to know for September? Two of Wands. So this is about strategizing and kind of thinking about what direction you're going in, all right? I have a feeling that like some Cancers or even Cancer risings are thinking about like, do I want to move? Is it time for me to consider my life in a new location? Is it a good idea for me to start thinking about other options for where I could go with my family or places that I have not visited or places that I have not been to? Twos always represent choices, duality, and whether or not there is a second path that's being lit up. Two of Wands is where your creative projects or where your mind may take you or places that you're feeling drawn to. I think about the retrograde that's happening in your 4th. I think about the squares to planets in your 7th. You may feel that you're being pressured to relocate for work. You may be looking at new properties, selling a house, buying a house, having somebody move in, having somebody move out. You are one of the months where there's you're one of the signs where there's going to be more intensity this month with your partnerships and your family. So I could see you guys being the ones that's like, you know, your partner wants to move, but, you know, maybe you want to stay, or you're talking about how you guys are going to handle your family if you move away from family, if you've got children. So there's a lot of moving parts here that I would just say, especially if you are thinking about moving or signing on a home or a new lease, really, really, really do your research. Make sure you like where you're going. Feel it all out first and be really mindful of the retrograde dates when it comes to really pulling the trigger on something like that, okay? But something new is being presented to you. For Leo, let's see what Leo has going on this month. Five of Wands. I kind of expected something like that. I think about, you know, on one hand, the planets moving into Libra are really great for you because it's great for communication. However, I'm not too crazy about some of the squares that are going to happen between Uranus and Saturn, and also, you know, Venus and Scorpio. It's going to reenact some of those fixed crosses for you. This is about conflict. This is about how you cut through conflict and about how you can learn not to keep challenging something, right? Like in this, you actually see that they're starting to put their wands down and they're walking away. So it's about like diffusing situations and not letting things blow up. Be mindful that Venus moving into your 4th house, coming into a square with Saturn in your 7th and Uranus in the 10th is like huge turning points during the squares that you're going to have this month, where you like really start to kind of put the pieces together and realize whether or not something is going to work in your life. It will either be with work, a relationship, or your home base. It can be that a partner says, you know what, I'm not ready for what you're ready for, or, you know, that work is like really hard on you more so this month than usual. It'll be brief. It'll only happen during the squares. Diffuse situations when you can. Don't fight fire with fire. Really look at where there's conflict and take a step back, and do not engage with other people who are stirring the pot. All right, so we've got Virgo. Ace of Swords. It did come up reversed, but it still is Ace of Swords. So Ace of Swords is a new initiation energetically. It does talk about Libra season. It does talk about the fall. But when this comes up reversed, this is like the real death card for me. So there is some kind of like a severance that's going on. I think about the aspects between your 2nd and your 5th house that's going to be happening with the retrograde, and it all comes down to values and what you do or do not value, what you will or will not invest in. I also think about how Venus is in your 3rd, making oppositions to Uranus in your 9th, square Saturn in your 6th. Are you having an issue, Virgo, with like your schedule, making time for someone? Is there somebody who doesn't have time for you? Are you trying to sort and sift through finding more time even for yourself? This Mercury retrograde may be harder for you to communicate when it comes to working with other people. You may find that it's harder to ask for a raise, harder to kind of find the words talking about how you feel. Because it squares Pluto, it's like you're going to have to give something up. You're going to have to cut something out of your life. You could have to cut something out of your diet even, or cut something out of your schedule. But the Ace of Swords is basically saying something needs to be let go. Something needs to be released. It can be painful, but it is something that you need to do in order to move forward. When Mercury goes retrograde, because you and Gemini are Mercury ruled signs, it can be more challenging to find the words than usual. I think it's about matters of the heart, though, for you, Virgo, honestly. All right, so we've got Libra. So what does Libra need to know? Those of you September Libras, happy birthday. So what does Libra need to know for this month? 7 of Wands. 7 of Wands is, in theory, it's coming out on top. So that's the good news. It's like, you know, there is a way for you to navigate this month by being friendly and being direct and kind of keeping with the direction of where you want things to go. But if somebody crosses you or somebody gives you a hard time, especially with Mercury and Mars and the sun in your sign, you're reactionary, you are quick. It's really important, Libra, for you to be active this month so that way you're blowing off steam, so you're not like ripping people's heads off, because that can definitely happen, especially Libra suns and Libra risings. You're going to be a little bit more intense this month than usual. This does talk about taking action, though, and being defensive and being able to cover your assets or being able to protect yourself. So on one hand, it's good. On the other hand, it's kind of saying, don't worry, you don't need to get touchy, you don't need to get defensive, you don't need to get possessive or controlling. You're going to be fine. Just kind of stay in your lane and find somewhere to put that energy. All right. And so for Scorpios, what does Scorpio need to know for this month? 7 of Swords. I expected this. And Scorpio is going to listen to this and they're going to be like, shmeh. Listen, Scorpio, if there is a Mercury retrograde, okay, that's happening in your 12th house, the likelihood is that you have a partner that's being very deceptive and not telling you the complete truth about something, or not like withholding. Like, it depends on if you consider omission lying. That's going to be on a personal basis, but it can be like a situation where they're not telling you something that went on. There's the possibility with the 7 of Swords that something is being uncovered that they left out of a conversation, or somebody is not being completely forthcoming with you. The square of Mercury in your 12th house to Pluto in your 3rd is going to be things like, did they hear from an ex? Are they going back and forth with someone? Did they receive a message or a phone call from someone? There can be some really intense conversations. You can also be a little suspicious of whether or not they're even being faithful to you. So this can come up if you're feeling kind of weird, especially because this card is confirming this. There is definitely something that is not like not completely clear that needs to be dealt with. Look for when Uranus comes into an opposition with Venus, and Venus is on your ascendant or near your sun, probably for this trigger to happen. And when it squares with Saturn is when you're going to basically like lay the groundwork and go, okay, so what really went on? There is a possibility, because the next card is the Eight of Swords, to get stuck in this situation and not be able to get out of it if you do not deal with this, okay? And now we've got Sag. Oops. Okay. For Sag, Queen of Wands. I love that card for you. Great card, being in your power, being creative, being passionate, being driven, like going the distance, everything kind of coming together. I see it as a time that can be really active for you, especially like with your friendships. There can be a lot going on there. You know, getting together with friends, hearing from friends from the past, being really creative, like really being in your energy, which is interesting because all the Libra energy does kind of funnel into your personal planets. I do think that there can be some interesting things that can happen in your love life. And so if that's happening with the oppositions with Venus and Uranus, pay attention to that. There can be changes with relationships or people who are coming in suddenly, sporadically through work. And I do just kind of see you really, really, really enjoying the month of September. This can also be about you having some kind of a connection with another fire sign. So it can be another Sag, an Aries, or a Leo, and working on something creatively that you're really passionate about. All right. So now we've got Capricorn, the moon. So this is talking about your intuition, your feelings, what's going on behind the scenes, like what you're vibing with. Be mindful that you are moody with Pluto in your sign, and a retrograde in your 10th can have you super moody, super emotional at work, going back and forth, being anxious, wondering whether or not something's going to work out, wondering whether or not something is going to finally clear out or come together. There are things happening within you that you do not see. There are energies changing within you that you are just becoming aware of as a result of these squares. I see for you, Capricorn, the opportunity to learn to communicate more clearly and not just emotionally reacting. You may be more sensitive during the lunation, so during the new moon and the full moon. I think you're especially going to see this around the full moon because of some things that are going on in your financial sector that you're really emotionally kind of tied to. But the good news is there's trines to Jupiter that day, so I think it's going to play out. Do something around the moons to be able to kind of move this energy around for you, okay? Aquarius. What does Aquarius need to know for September? Queen of Cups. Emotional, intuitive, receptive, open. This can also be you dealing with a water sign, so a Pisces, Cancer, or a Scorpio. It's interesting because I really like the energy for you. It's going to light up all of these placements that you have in fellow air signs. So you're going to see a lot of like positive energy happening with your 5th house and with your 9th house. I see a retrograde happening in your 9th as being like a relationship at a distance, a relationship at afar, wrapping up legal matters, finishing a course, maybe getting ready to do something revolving around travel or travel plans. Travel plans can go a bit astray this month, so be mindful of that. A partner might get stuck somewhere. Legal stuff can also have a bit of like a hang up. But overall, you're in good spirits, you're emotional, you're positive. This is definitely about maybe somebody from the past coming back and talking to you about how they feel. So be mindful that that can be happening, but overall, pretty good. And last but not least, we have Pisces. So what do we need to know for Pisces? Ooh, I pulled 2 cards. Okay, we're going to go with the top one. The 9 of Cups. That's a good card to pull, right? 9 of Cups is the wish card, Pisces, getting what you wished for. pay attention to that full moon. The full moon in your sign, I think, is going to be really good for you. Nine of Cups is about getting everything that you asked for, everything coming together, being very magical, feeling like your cup's running over. It can also be like a wish coming true. It's really focusing on being able to bring something in that you've always wanted and being really excited and feeling like very whimsical and like creative, and that like everything is kind of coming together for you all at once. So focus on those wishes, maybe even especially for that new moon in Virgo, because Pisces, it's going to be in your relationship sector. So if you're setting intentions revolving around relationships, do it during the Virgo new moon, and watch for all of like the sparks and the sparkles and everything during the full moon in Pisces. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. I look forward to coming back and doing that video really soon about the new moon in Virgo. Stay tuned for that. Also stay tuned for Friday. Like I said, we're going to do those live tarot readings. I'll be back next week. I don't know what we'll be talking about because I'm going to do a new moon video between now and then. But thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And if any of you guys want to get a reading with me, like I said, check out my links below and my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com, where I do intuitive, predictive, Western evolutionary astrology along with tarot and clairvoyant readings. I am so glad to be here to be helping you guys. And yeah, let me know how the week, or actually the month, is going for you, how some of these transits play out for you, and which one you're most interested to see and how it relates to your own personal natal chart. You guys have an awesome September, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.